Hey guys, tonight we're going back, way back, to a world where the ceilings were thatched, the floors were dirt, and if you were born a girl, your life path was basically preset before you took your first breath. Welcome to the medieval village, where you'll cry your first cry wrapped in linen, swaddled in expectations, and almost immediately be assigned chores you won't understand for years. You probably won't survive this. And that's before puberty. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And drop your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing where and when you're watching from. Now dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're born in a rush of steam, blood, and quiet panic. Your mother grits her teeth. The midwife mutters to herself and throws dried herbs onto the fire like it's going to change the outcome. The room is thick with heat, smoke, and the smell of iron. When you arrive, they look between your legs, pause, and sigh. A girl? You're wrapped in old linen and passed from hands to hands. You don't understand the silence in the room, the disappointment only half hidden behind the priest's quiet prayer. But it's there. Girls are blessings, quiet ones, cheap ones who won't eat much and will fetch a decent dowry someday. They name you something gentle, something hopeful, something you will rarely hear without an order attached. Elaine, fetch water. Elaine, mind the stew. Elaine, stop crying. You grow quickly. Babies either do or don't here. And your earliest years are filled with watching, carrying, and being told to stay out of the way. Historians still argue whether girls in medieval villages had any true childhood. If by childhood we mean time to play, the answer is sometimes. If we mean time free of responsibilities, the answer is a firm and muddy no. By age 5, you're helping shell peas, sweep ash, and shoot chickens. You're praised for being quiet, punished for being loud, and trained, slowly but surely, for obedience. Your father nods at you, occasionally. That's affection. Your mother calls you useful. That's love. Your brothers chase each other with sticks. You chase after the broom someone left behind. It's not that no one cares about you. It's just that they care about what you can do. The midwife checks on you now and then. She pokes your belly, inspects your teeth, and mutters, "She'll be strong." Your mother hopes so. She lost 2 girls before you. A fever. A bad winter. They don't talk about it much. You're told gently never to stray near the woods. You're told, not so gently, never to talk back. You learn to keep your eyes down and your hands busy. You learn that spilled grain means an evening without supper. You learn that the priest's attention is never casual. One afternoon, you find a toad. You name it. You cradle it. You tuck it in your shift. Your grandmother sees you, gasps, and throws a pinch of salt over your head. No frogs in the house. Bad omens. You try to explain. You're 5. She's already tying a protective charm around your wrist. Quirky fact. Newborn girls were sometimes swaddled tighter than boys to shape them into more graceful forms. Your aunt once claimed that flat heads made for better marriages. No one disagrees with her. You still sleep with a stone under your pillow, just in case. As the years pass, you learn more about who you are, or rather, what you're meant to be. Helpful, humble, marryable. You see the older girls whispering in corners, eyes rimmed with coal scraped from burnt herbs. You hear them giggle behind the well. You don't understand yet, but you will. By 7, you can knead bread, clean fish, and recognize the tone that means you've done something wrong, even if you haven't. Your hair grows long. You're told to cover it. Your legs grow strong. You're told to keep them closed. Your world grows more narrow, even as you grow bigger. And one night, as you lie on your straw mat, hands raw from scrubbing, belly full of barley, you stare at the soot-streaked ceiling and wonder what it would have been like to be born a boy. The older you get, the more invisible you become. Not in a magical way. No one's mistaking you for a forest witch just yet, but in the quiet, creeping way that settles over every girl in the village once she learns to stop asking questions and start picking lint out of wool. You're 8 now, maybe 9. You've lost track because birthdays aren't really celebrated unless someone brings a turnip with a candle in it, and even then, the candle's probably reused. What you do know is that girlhood doesn't come with much free time. You rise before the rooster, not because you're eager, but because your mother says so. You sweep the floor, you stoke the fire, you stir the pot, you chase the goose, you lose. The goose hisses, and your shin now has a beak-shaped bruise. Welcome to Tuesday. After that, it's spinning. Not the fun kind. You sit beside your grandmother and pull tufts of wool through your fingers until they become thread. The wheel creaks. Your fingers ache. You accidentally drop the spindle and are treated to a half-hour lecture about wastefulness and how cloth doesn't grow on trees. Historians still argue whether medieval girls were trained in all domestic skills by age 10, or simply expected to absorb them through osmosis. Judging by your day so far, it's clearly the latter. You don't learn to do anything. You're just told to keep doing it until you stop doing it wrong. There's no school for you. That's for boys. Sometimes. You can't read. Yet. You don't expect to. But you know the stories. St. Margaret, who burst from a dragon's stomach. St. Catherine, who got spiked on a wheel. St. Bridget, who turned bathwater into beer. You especially like the beer one. The village priest comes by sometimes and gives vague sermons about obedience. You try to listen, but it's hard when your cousin is picking lice off your collar and whispering about how the baker's apprentice stared at her ankles last week. Scandalous. The chores pile up. You feed the chickens, fetch water, wash linens, dry herbs, clean ashes, pluck fleas from the bedding, and recite your prayers. You get yelled at for humming. You get scolded for running. You get told, act like a young lady, which apparently means moving like a whisper and never laughing too loud. You try to sneak away in the afternoons, just for a moment. There's a stump by the river where the moss is soft and the wind doesn't carry anyone's voice. You sit there, knees hugged to your chest, and pretend you're someone else. Maybe a noble girl with clean hands. Maybe a traveling minstrel who sings rude songs and eats pears whenever she wants. Quirky fact, in some regions, girls were given dolls stuffed with flax to teach sewing, tiny apprentices for their tiny fingers. You once tried to make one. It ended up cursed looking. You buried it behind the shed and never spoke of it again. Your brother, meanwhile, is swinging a stick around like he's training to fight in a war. He doesn't get yelled at for scuffing his shoes. He gets praised for spirit. You try swinging a stick. You knock over a bucket. You are told to sit down immediately. Your mother warns you not to invite attention. You don't know what she means yet, but you feel it when the older men start lingering a little longer at the well. when someone calls you nearly grown, when you notice the baker's apprentice now looking at your ankles. You drop your bucket and walk faster. Your world is still small. Hearth to well, well to field, field to home. But the caution is growing. You sleep in a corner now, near the loom, wrapped in your own blanket. Your dreams are stitched with whispers. What girls can't do, shouldn't say, must never become. One night, your sister whispers, "When you bleed, don't tell the boys." Why? Because then you're worth something. You don't understand, but you will. It starts quietly, as most disasters do. One morning you wake and the world feels wrong. Your body aches in strange places. Your chest is tender. Your bones feel stretched, like someone's pulling you from the inside. You say nothing. You limp through chores. You chalk it up to sleeping funny. But then, a stain. Rust brown and unmistakable. You stare at it like it's a curse carved into linen. You're 12, maybe 13. Time doesn't matter now. Time belongs to your body. You try to wash the shift in secret. You scrub and scrub until your knuckles sting, until your arms are tired, until the stain has blurred into something less specific. But your mother finds it. She says nothing. She simply exhales through her nose and walks out the door. When she returns, she brings an armful of cloth rags and an expression that could curdle soup. "You're a woman now," she says flatly. You nod, unsure what that means. You think it means you'll finally get to wear the good head wrap. It doesn't. Instead, it means the chores double. The expectations harden, and suddenly, everyone seems to notice you. The old women start watching you with a new kind of squint. They offer you folded bits of advice wrapped in superstition and dried mint. "Don't sit on cold stones," one says. "It'll stop the flow." "Don't look at the moon too long," says another. "It'll spoil your womb." You nod at both, confused, arms full of laundry. Your father avoids eye contact now. Your brothers make fewer jokes. Even the dog seems warier. You try to walk like nothing's changed. You try to keep your back straight and your mouth shut. But your hips ache. Your chest itches. Your face sprouts bumps like someone planted seeds in your cheeks and watered them with shame. Historians still debate whether girls in the Middle Ages truly understood what was happening to their bodies. The truth? You don't. Not really. All you know is that you're being watched more closely and touched more carefully. The village midwife stops you at the well and hands you a sachet of herbs to keep things regular. She doesn't explain. She pats your arm and limps away. You stuff the pouch in your shift and try to pretend it's not crinkling against your ribs. Then come the whispers. She's nearly ripe. She'll be matched by harvest. Best get her settled before she starts looking at the wrong boys. You blush so hard your ears tingle. You drop your basket. You pick it up without looking anyone in the eye. You don't feel ripe. You feel raw. Your friends are changing too. One is betrothed already, to a boy who once threw mud at her. Another's been pulled from chores to sit and embroider because she needs to look marriageable. You don't even have a comb of your own yet. Quirky fact. In some regions, girls were officially eligible for marriage as early as 12. That's the same age you were when you last chased a duck with a stick. The same age you fell in the mud and laughed until your stomach hurt. the same age you were told to start covering your hair like a decent girl. Your periods come and go, irregular and unkind. You learn to fold rags just right, how to discreetly step away to change them, how to hide the cramps and pretend everything is fine while you're bending over to haul grain sacks. Your body's a problem now, one that needs managing, hiding, training. At night, you lie on your mat and press a warm stone to your belly. It helps. A little. Your sister whispers stories of a woman who bled every full moon and never bore children. She says the woman was cursed or blessed. No one agrees. Your mother warns you not to shame the family. Your father mumbles about a suitor from 2 villages over. Your dreams begin to feel heavy, like someone else is deciding them for you. You hold your cloth rags under the firelight, watching them dry. They flap like flags in the smoky air. You wonder what they're signaling. Because this body, this bleeding, aching, watched body, isn't yours anymore. It belongs to the future, to the suitor, to the expectations. You pull your shawl tighter and close your eyes, and you wish, just once, that someone had told you what to expect before the stain arrived. The wedding is decided before you're asked, which is fine, because you're not asked. You're told, while peeling onions naturally. Your mother doesn't even look up when she says it. You'll be married by spring. You pause. The knife in your hand stills. You blink at the onion, and it blinks back. To whom? She shrugs. He's got land, 2 goats. His uncle's a reeve. That's not really an answer, but it's all you're getting. You wipe your hands on your apron and nod. You've known this day would come. Every girl does. You just didn't expect it to feel so unspecial. He's older, not ancient, but definitely not boyish. You saw him once at the market, arguing over cabbage prices like his life depended on it. He smells vaguely of onions and wet wool. You try not to judge, but it's difficult when your future is about to be sown to someone who says woman's work, like it's a punishment. Still, he has goats. Your mother starts preparing your marriage chest. It's mostly cloth, hand-stitched shifts, patched veils, and a single silver pin that used to belong to your grandmother. You add your comb, your best linen apron, a dried sprig of rosemary for luck. The priest arrives one morning with a smile and a scroll. He blesses the union, says something about obedience and duty, and gently reminds you that your womb is now the property of the Lord, and also your husband. You curtsy. You try not to grimace. Historians still argue whether medieval peasant girls had any say in marriage. In wealthier circles, marriages were contracts. Among the poor, they were arrangements. You fall somewhere between the two, contracted, arranged, and vaguely hopeful. The wedding itself is brief. You're dressed in your best shift. It's off-white with faint flower stains, but it's clean and mended. You wear a crown of wildflowers. Your sister made it. She wept while weaving it and told you she wasn't sure if she was sad or just allergic. You walk to the chapel. People smile. Someone throws grain. A child sneezes directly onto your skirt. The priest mumbles the vows. You repeat them. Your husband-to-be mutters something that sounds like, "I do, but might be, I guess." There's a kiss, chaste, dry, then food. Bread mostly, a bit of salted meat, ale. You sit beside him and try not to notice how loudly he chews. You sip from your cup and watch the firelight dance on the walls. You smile when people look your way. You nod when you're toasted. Then comes the bedding. Yes, that bedding. The whole village doesn't barge into your chamber, thankfully. That's more of a noble custom. But your mother walks you to the doorway. Your aunt hands you a bundle of herbs and mutters something about fertility. Your sister says, "Good luck," like you're going to war. You step inside. The door closes. The bed is straw with a sheepskin on top. Your husband sits on the edge, fiddling with his boots. Neither of you speaks for a while. Eventually, he clears his throat. "You're younger than I thought." You nod. "You're older." He grunts. "I'll be kind." You appreciate that. You're not sure what kind will look like, but it's better than the alternative. The first time is awkward, uncomfortable, quick. You try to keep your face blank, like your mother told you. It gets better, she'd said, or it gets easier to ignore. You lie awake long after he's snoring. You stare at the thatched ceiling and listen to the wind outside. You're married now. A wife, a legal adult, the onion peeler for one house now instead of two. Quirky fact, medieval marriage could be official with just verbal consent and consummation. No priest, no party, just a statement and a shared bed. But your village prefers ceremony. It makes things feel legitimate. Your wedding night ends not with romance, or roses, or whispered secrets. It ends with you pulling the blanket up to your chin and promising yourself, silently, you'll keep something for you. Even if it's just the silver pin at the bottom of your marriage chest. The wedding's over. The guests are gone. The flower crown is wilting in the firelight. And you're scrubbing the stew pot. You hoped, maybe, that being married would feel different, that some invisible door would open and you'd walk into a brighter, more powerful version of your life, that someone would say, "Congratulations. Here is your new, improved purpose." But instead, you're handed a broom. Your husband is already snoring. You wonder if he snores through thunderstorms. You'll find out, possibly tonight. Your new home isn't far from your old one, but it feels farther. The walls are unfamiliar. The hearth is in the wrong corner. The dog looks at you like a usurper. Your mother-in-law lives with you. No one warned you about that. She has eyes like needles and a voice like bread crust. She watches everything you do, the way you knead, sweep, speak. She corrects your posture while you're peeling turnips. "Stand up straight," she says. "Your back is young now, but it won't always be." You resist the urge to mutter, "Neither will you." The daily rhythm begins. You wake before dawn. You start the fire. You fetch water. You knead dough. You patch cloaks. You gather eggs. You feed the chickens. You stir the stew. You smile through it. Then you do it all again. It's not glamorous. It's not even satisfying. It's just necessary. Like breathing, but dustier. Historians still debate how many hours a medieval woman worked per day. The answer? All of them. The chickens don't wait. The goats don't pause. The roof leaks. The baby cries. The ale sours. The laundry molds if you forget it in the basket even once. And somehow, it's always your fault. There are no weekends. There are no breaks. There is only before the sun is up and after the stew is done. Your husband helps sometimes. He sharpens tools, hauls firewood, fixes fences. You appreciate it. You do. But when the bread burns, he's not the one everyone talks about. Your hands blister. Your back aches. Your hair is always covered in flour, ash, or small feathers. You start hiding mint leaves in your sleeves again, just for the illusion of freshness. Sometimes, in the quiet moments, when the stew is simmering and your stitches are neat, you feel proud, useful, important even. Then someone shouts that there's mud tracked through the house, and you're scrubbing the floor before you even ask who did it. You think about your mother, about how tired she always looked, about the way she'd close her eyes while stirring soup, as if pretending she was somewhere else. You used to think she was sleepy. Now you know she was surviving. You're given little tokens of affection, a carved spoon, a warm scarf, a lopsided candle. Your husband isn't cruel. He's just distracted. He talks about goats the way you wish he talked about you. One night, you try to talk about a dream you had, a strange, beautiful one, involving snow, music, and a tree that bloomed in winter. He blinks, nods, and asks if you remembered to soak the beans. You stop telling him your dreams after that. Quirky fact: some women found rare joy in communal tasks, baking together, spinning circles, sharing stories while patching hems. You cling to these hours. They are yours. They smell of beeswax and laughter. You laugh less than you used to. But when you do, it's real, and it's hard-won. That night, you tuck into bed. The straw is softer than you expected. The blanket still smells faintly of rosemary and wood smoke. You listen to the wind outside. The dog shifts at the door. Your husband mumbles something in his sleep, possibly about goats. You stare at the ceiling. You're not a bride anymore. You're a wife, and your job is everything. You wake to pressure. Not a voice, not a sound, just a weight pressing down on your chest, like the air itself is thicker. It's morning, but your body already knows it's not going to rest again for a long time. The baby is crying. Well, a baby is crying. You're not sure if it's yours yet. You sit up, bleary-eyed, and yes, that cry is definitely your child. You shuffle toward the cradle, pick up the bundle of limbs and noise, and begin the ritual. Pat, bounce, whisper, shush, repeat. Your arms ache from yesterday. Your breasts ache from this morning. Your head aches from every other moment. This is motherhood. In the Middle Ages, you don't get maternity leave. You get maternity expectations. The midwife cuts the cord, nods approvingly, and within days, you're back hauling firewood, if you're lucky enough to still be standing. And you are, barely. You gave birth on a straw mat with a damp rag between your teeth and a prayer clenched in your fist. There was no doctor, just the midwife, your mother-in-law, and Saint Margaret hanging from a charm above the doorway. The birth was hard, messy, and loud, and when it was over, someone handed you your baby and said, "Now the work begins." You laugh now at how untrue that was. The work began years ago. Now it simply has an audience. You feed the baby, awkwardly, sleepily, one breast half leaking, while you stir a pot with the other hand. If your husband notices, he says nothing. He's out in the fields. That's his part. Yours is everything else. Cooking, cleaning, nursing, mending, baking, scrubbing, and somehow being agreeable. Your mother-in-law suggests you keep your hair braided tighter. Men like tidy wives. You resist the urge to tell her that tidy wives don't exist, just tired ones. You are always tired. Historians still argue whether medieval peasant women worked harder than men. It's a debate that usually ends with a sigh, a nod, and the words, "Yes, probably." You strap the baby to your back with a worn length of cloth and return to your chores. Laundry, chickens, firewood. The rhythm of domestic life beats on. No breaks, no intermissions, no applause. Sometimes you cry while sweeping. Not from sadness exactly, from too muchness. Too many tasks, too many smells, too many responsibilities. But you keep sweeping. That's what you do. Your hands are cracked from ash and soap. Your knees are raw from scrubbing. Your eyes are heavy from feeding a newborn every 2 hours while still pretending you care whether the soup tastes right. Quirky fact: some medieval women used warm stones wrapped in cloth to soothe nursing pain, or carried milk charms to protect their flow. You tried one once. It smelled like burnt thyme. You kept it anyway. Your body is no longer yours. It belongs to the baby, to the family, to the schedule. You've stopped counting days by the sun and started counting by feedings and chores. On rare occasions, your husband thanks you. He pats your shoulder, says, "You work hard," then goes back to discussing goat feed. You take what you can get. In the evening, you sit by the hearth and rock the baby with your foot while mending a torn sleeve. Your sister visits and brings a small honey cake. You both eat it in silence, savoring every crumb like it's a feast. She watches you with soft eyes. "You're doing well," she says. You want to believe her. You try to. That night, you collapse into your straw mat, arms wrapped around the baby, hair tangled, feet numb. You breathe. You close your eyes. And in that last moment before sleep, you whisper, not a prayer, but a promise. Tomorrow, you'll do it all again, because no one else will. The priest says certain things are sins. You've heard the list many times. It's long, mostly vague, almost entirely female-coded. Pride, vanity, desire, disobedience. You can practically hear his voice now, floating through the chapel rafters, thin as soup and just as nourishing. Women must be chaste, silent, and obedient, he declares. You resist the urge to sneeze. You know the rules, everyone does, and yet, somewhere between the flour sack laundry and the crying baby, you start to wonder, what about you? Do you get to feel anything beyond obligation? Or is even that too much? Because let's talk about sex. Or rather, let's tiptoe around it the way medieval women had to. You're told it's your duty. You're told to endure it. You're told to never want it. And yet, you're expected to make children, as many as possible, as soon as possible, efficiently, politely, and preferably with no noise. Your first time left you more confused than anything. The second sore. The third, you tried to smile. You said something awkward. Your husband looked puzzled, then returned to fastening his boots. Romance, it seems, is not included. Historians still argue over how much medieval women knew about sex. In some households, older women passed on whispered warnings or tips: how to breathe through the discomfort, how to fake sleep, how to avoid a 7th pregnancy when the first 6 already ruined your back. You asked your mother once if she ever enjoyed it. She laughed, long and hard, then said, "I enjoyed the part where he left me alone afterward." You got the message. The church was very clear about what was allowed. No pleasure, no experimentation, no fun, just missionary, for marriage, for procreation. Anything else? Sin, temptation, possibly heresy. You once heard of a woman who suggested trying something different. Now she's known as the garlic widow, which isn't even a euphemism, just no one wants to sit next to her. Quirky fact, there were church-sanctioned manuals that listed which days sex was forbidden. Spoiler, it was most of them. Sundays, feast days, fast days, Lent, Advent, the eve of any holy day, and also Wednesdays, for some reason. You wonder how anyone managed to have children at all. There are no words for what you feel, no space for it. Your body is a tool, a vessel, a schedule. You keep track of your cycle using notches on the beam near your bed. You pray not for pleasure, but for relief, a skipped night, a kinder mood, an early sleep. You've heard rumors of love, real love, stories told in the corners of spinning circles and whispered across shared loaves. A traveling singer once sang of a woman who kissed a man just because she wanted to. You dreamed about that for days, but dreams don't count. Desire is dangerous. It leads to trouble. It gets women accused, labeled, burned. You keep yours locked away, wrapped in the same cloth you use for your monthly bleeding rags, tucked at the back of the shelf, hidden behind the beans. One night, your husband turns to you and says, "You're quiet lately." You blink. "I've been tired." He nods, rolls over, snores, and that's the end of it. You wish you'd said more, or something at all, but your body's already learned silence. It's safer that way. You've been feeling off. Your stomach churns at odd hours. You've developed an uncanny ability to smell everything, from your husband's boots to the goat that lives 2 houses down. Your back aches, your appetite's gone strange, and you haven't bled in 2 moons. There's no suspense here. You know exactly what's happening. You're pregnant. Again. You tell your mother-in-law first, not because you want to, but because she always notices. She peers at you for a full minute, squints, then says, "You're glowing," or sweating. Either way, it's familiar. You nod. She pats your shoulder with all the warmth of a damp mitten. Pregnancy is both expected and feared. A sign that you've done your duty. Also a reminder that your life might soon be over. You start eating differently. Less of what you want, more of what you're told. No onions. They'll make the baby quarrelsome. No eels. They'll make the baby slippery. No roasted chestnuts, just because your cousin choked on one once and your aunt declared it a curse. You obey most of it. You carry on with your work, because work doesn't stop. You still haul water, scrub stains, chase geese, knead dough, comb out lice, and fold what feels like the entire village's laundry. But now, with a growing belly and increasingly wobbly ankles. Your husband's pleased, in the quiet, vaguely smug way men are. He slaps your back once and tells the miller, "She's fertile as a spring garden." You glare at him. He doesn't notice. By the 7th month, your walk has changed. You sway, you shift, you grunt when you sit, you snore when you sleep. Your toes disappear. Your patience evaporates. Historians still argue how often pregnant women were expected to work up to labor, the general consensus, until the contractions start, and sometimes even after that. The midwife visits. She brings bundles of herbs, a length of clean cloth, and a charm carved from bone. "You'll do fine," she says, "unless you don't." Comforting. You ask her how many babies she's delivered. She pauses. More than I've buried. You nod. You don't ask for specifics. The night it begins, you feel the first tightening deep inside. Not painful, yet. Just a warning, like thunder rumbling behind the hills. You grip the edge of the table and whisper, "It's time." The midwife is fetched. The room is cleared. The dog is tied outside. You're given a cloth to bite, a strap to hold, and a prayer to say under your breath. Your mother-in-law lights candles. Your sister brings warm water and wipes your forehead with trembling hands. The contractions come in waves. At first you breathe through them, then you moan, then you scream. The pain is not poetic. It is not sacred. It is a ripping, stretching, tearing ache that silences all thought. You try to leave your body. It refuses. You are in it, wholly and without mercy. The midwife says, "Push." You do. The room is a blur of faces, flickering shadows, and voices telling you to be strong, to be calm, to be quiet. You are none of these things. Then, finally, a cry. A real one. Not yours. The baby is lifted, turned, cleaned with a rag, and placed on your chest. You stare. It's tiny, wrinkled, loud, alive. You cry too, but only a little. You're too tired for more. The midwife cuts the cord, ties it off with thread, wraps the child in linen, smiles gently. "You did it," she says. You barely nod. Then she adds, "Rest if you can. We'll see if you make it through the night." Quirky fact. Postpartum death was so common that some women were given churching rites, blessings not just for the baby, but in gratitude that they hadn't died. You survive. This time, you name the baby something short, something strong, something easy to whisper at night when the tears come. You lie awake, body hollowed and heart full. You've never been so afraid. You've never been so alive. He dies in early spring, not dramatically, not with shouting or swords, just quietly, like the last flame flickering out after the stew's gone cold. One day he's there, mumbling about goat feed, chewing too loudly, and leaving his boots exactly where you trip over them. And the next, he's coughing blood into a cloth and staring at you with the kind of fear that makes your spine turn to straw. They bury him before the thaw. A simple grave dug into softening earth just beyond the chapel wall. Wrapped in his best tunic, stuffed with dried mint, and given the standard peasant farewell. A prayer, a stone marker, and a surprisingly decent loaf of bread that no one eats. You stand there in your black veil, holding the baby, and realize something strange. You are not sad. You are stunned, hollow, lightheaded with the kind of freedom that feels almost illegal. You are 25. You are a widow. And now comes the paperwork, or what passes for it in a world without pens. Everyone has an opinion. Your mother-in-law moves into your space like smoke. The village reeve comes by with questions about goats, debts, property. Your husband never wrote a will. You never learned to write. And now, suddenly, the goat belongs to his cousin. You keep the baby, of course, and a third of the house, technically. You sleep in the smallest room now, by the pantry, next to the broom cupboard, with a window that only opens if you hit it just right. Widowhood, it turns out, is just marriage without the snoring, and fewer rights. Historians still debate whether medieval widows had more independence or more vulnerability. Some gained legal standing, others lost everything. Most walked a careful line between being respected and being resented. You start wearing a key around your neck, not because it opens anything, just because it looks like you have authority. You speak more softly. You nod more often. You become what the villagers call respectable, which mostly means don't make a fuss. You're told you should remarry. There's a miller with a bad leg and 3 grown daughters. He stares at you from under his hood, chewing slowly and muttering about warm meals. You decline. Your aunt clucks. You won't want to grow old alone. You already feel older than the moon. You take in mending work. You bake for other households. You braid your hair tighter and tighter until it stops falling into your face and starts hurting your scalp. It helps you think. Your son starts toddling. You love him with a fierceness that surprises you. He is yours, not the village's, not the church's, not even the late goat hoarders. Just yours. You sing to him at night. Songs your mother sang. Soft, wordless things that make his little body still, and his fingers curl around your sleeve. You sleep beside him on the narrow mat, and for the first time in years, decades maybe, you sleep deeply. No one will ask you to lie beneath them tonight. No one will ask for stew or bread or airs. Just your son, his breath warm against your arm, and the soft sound of wind in the thatch above. Quirky fact, some widows wore mourning clothes for life, not out of devotion, but out of practicality. Mourning garb marked you as off limits, safer, less tempting. You keep the black veil, you wear it like armor, because in this world, grief is not always sadness. Sometimes it's space, and you have finally earned a little. There's a part of you that begins to wonder, what if you'd never married? What if your life had followed a different braid, one not tied off by goats and childbirth and stew? You've heard of the convent, of course. Everyone has. A quiet stone place beyond the far field, past the old Roman road, where women live without husbands, without children, without anyone. They wear long robes. They pray a lot. They garden. They chant. They smell of candle wax and rose water. And they never give birth in the dirt. The thought lingers. One day, you walk there. Not to join, just to look. You tell no one. You carry no bundle. You just say you're picking herbs and follow the path past the willow trees, where the air is so still it feels like it's listening. The convent walls rise like something from a dream. Tall, gray, solid. Not a draft in sight. You knock. Eventually, a small woman in a dark veil answers. She doesn't smile, but she doesn't frown either. You ask if you may rest. She nods, and just like that, you're inside. It's quiet, not the silence of absence, the silence of order. Everything has a rhythm, bells tolling, robes swishing, pages turning. A young nun brings you water. Another gives you bread. It's warm, soft, and doesn't smell like mold. You nearly cry into it. They don't ask why you're here. That's part of the grace. You sit in their chapel for a while. You don't pray. You just breathe. Historians still debate whether convent life was liberating or just another cage. But to you, right now, it looks like peace. The abbess appears. She has lines on her face like folds in old parchment and eyes that could pin you to the wall. "Have you lost something?" she asks gently. You think, "Only myself." She nods like that's the right answer. "You may come again," she says, "when you know what you want to keep." You walk home lighter, but not empty. Quirky fact, women often entered convents not out of devotion, but escape. Dowry too small? No husband? Widowed? Unwanted? Holy women took them in, if they could read, if they could serve. You start learning your letters. A priest's clerk owes your family a favor. You trade loaves for lessons. You scratch the alphabet into wax tablets with stiff fingers and stubborn pride. A is for avenue. B is for bread. C is for choice. You're not sure you'll join the convent. Not really. But the idea lives in you now. A quiet echo. A place inside your chest that doesn't ache. You still carry water. Still patch tunics. Still hush your son to sleep. But sometimes you hum the chants you heard behind those walls. Sometimes you light a candle and imagine you're alone in a cloister, reading psalms and drinking something warm. Sometimes you dream of never bleeding again, of clean stone, clear air, of a life that belongs only to you. It starts with a sick cow and a tea you made. Just a little bundle of herbs, thyme, comfrey, a whisper of fever few, boiled and strained and poured into a wooden cup for your neighbor whose cow hadn't stood properly in 2 days. You didn't think much of it. You've been using those herbs for years, passed down from your grandmother and her grandmother before her. The cow gets better. Then her son stops coughing after you smear a salve across his chest. The same mix you've always used. Honey, mustard seed, and garlic steeped in oil. People start showing up. First, it's just villagers asking for help with colicky babies, sour stomachs, and winter rashes. Then it's strangers, travelers from a day's walk away, offering you bread in exchange for dried nettles or a dose of whatever you gave the cooper's wife. And then someone gets better from something they weren't supposed to get better from. A fever that should have burned through them. A wound that should have festered. Something that doesn't match the priest's prayers, but does match your poultice. That's when the whispers begin. "Wise woman," they say. "Clever hands," they murmur. "Witch," they mutter, but only when they think you've gone home. You hear it. You pretend you don't. Historians still argue over how much power medieval midwives and herbalists really had. Some claim they were honored as healers. Others point to scorched records and say, "Not for long. You continue working. You keep your hands clean. You keep your smile soft. You start leaving your front door open so people don't accuse you of secrecy. You pray more loudly at Mass. You let the priest see you light candles for the sick. But you also dry the yarrow anyway. You know what saves people, and it's not always sermons. Your son watches you boil roots and grind seeds. He asks questions. You answer carefully. This is for bellies. This one's for cuts. This one, you pause, is only for women. He nods. You remember the stories you heard as a girl, about a woman who could stop bleeding with a touch, another who made birth easier just by whispering the baby's name in the mother's ear. You once thought those women were magic. Now you know better. They were just prepared. One night, the baker's daughter shows up at your door, eyes wide with fear and clutching her belly. She's too young. You take her in anyway. You give her tea. You wipe her forehead. You whisper prayers you don't really believe in. You do what must be done. The next morning she leaves pale but standing. She says nothing. You don't need her to. A week later, someone spits near your doorstep. A chicken dies mysteriously. Someone says they saw you picking mushrooms in the woods, where the wind doesn't blow right. You keep your head down. You keep your hands moving. You keep living. Quirky fact, many accused witches were simply women with too much knowledge and too little protection. Midwives, widows, healers, they knew the wrong things or helped the wrong people, or remembered for too many things that should have been forgotten. You burn your most effective tincture recipe, just in case. But you keep the salve, because someone else will need it. And you can't pretend you don't know how to help. At night, you hide your herbs behind the flower. You whisper your wisdom to the wall. And when you hear someone coughing outside your door, you still open it. Because fear is heavy, but kindness is heavier. And you've carried both before. You've never had much choice in what you wear. Clothes, for a medieval woman like you, are less about fashion and more about function, with a dash of, please don't freeze to death. Still, people notice what you wear, and more importantly, they judge you for it. You wake, pull on your linen shift, the base layer of your existence, and begin dressing for the day. Over that, your kirtle, hand-dyed, slightly uneven, sleeves a bit too tight from mending gone wrong. You top it with your apron, patched at the waist, and a veil that never quite sits straight no matter how you pin it. There is no closet, just a hook and folded cloth. You own 2 shifts, 1 gown, and half a cloak. The other half was repurposed to swaddle your son last winter. And yet, when you walk through the village, people see. She's wearing blue again, someone whispers. Bit proud, isn't she? Blue, it turns out, is fancy. Not royal, not silk, but fancy enough to spark commentary if you wear it too often. You made it from woad-stained wool and hard work, but apparently that's not the point. Your shoes are wood-soled and cracked. Your laces fray daily. Your veil, meant to signify modesty and good womanhood, flaps dramatically in the wind, often exposing wisps of hair and your deepening scowl. Fashion, for men, is indulgence. For you, it's morality. Historians note that medieval women's clothing was less about utility than symbolism. Covered hair, virtue, tightly laced bodice, respectability, stains on the hem, sloth, too clean, vanity. You can't win. And yet you try. You wash your shift with lye and hope it doesn't dissolve. You scrub stains with chalk and sour milk. You re-dye your apron with onion skins and elderberry, praying it doesn't rain. You keep your veil pinned, not because it's comfortable, but because loose hair is associated with loose morals. You wear shoes even when they hurt. You sew little decorative stitches on your cuffs, not out of vanity, but because it's the only kind of beauty you're allowed. Quirky fact, pins were so valuable that women often slept with them tucked into cloth bags beneath their pillows. Losing one could mean going bareheaded, or worse, being mistaken for available. You once lost a pin and spent the entire day holding your veil in place with sheer stubbornness and your chin. Fashion also signals age and worth and fertility. Married women wear veils. Unmarried girls show a braid or two, neatly done. Widows wear black or gray, or whatever's clean and not blood red, as your aunt once muttered after her 4th funeral that year. But there's rebellion, too. A girl wears her belt askew. Someone stitches flowers onto the edge of a work apron. You see another woman with her sleeves rolled just high enough to show bruised forearms and strong wrists. An unspoken flex. You notice it all. One market day, a traveling merchant stops by. He carries scraps, bright silk ribbons, glass buttons, dyed thread. You stare at a piece of green cloth so vivid it looks enchanted. You don't have coin, but you do have salve. And a sharp eye. You trade a small pot of healing balm for a length of cheap ribbon, yellow, frayed at one end, but yours. That evening, you tie it around your braid. Not for anyone else. Not to look younger or richer or more worthy. Just to remind yourself you're still here, still you. And when someone at the well smirks and says, "Trying to catch a new husband," you smile and say, "No, trying to remind myself I don't need one." You walk away with your veil fluttering, your ribbon bright, and your back straighter than usual. Because sometimes, in a world full of lye soap, woolen shifts, and judgmental glances, a ribbon is revolution. There's a commotion at the chapel. You hear it before you see it. Raised voices, boots crunching on frost-hardened dirt, the distant whinny of a startled horse. You lean out the door, wiping your hands on your apron. 2 villagers are being led toward the church by the reeve and a man from the manor house. One of them is a woman. You recognize her. She lives down by the marsh, sells duck eggs, and sometimes trades herbs with you. She's quiet, keeps to herself, and now her hands are bound with coarse rope. Her crime, no one's quite sure yet, but that doesn't stop the muttering. Stole grain, lied to the miller. Witchcraft, that last one sticks like mud. You watch from a distance, arms folded, heart hammering beneath your shift. The reeve calls for witnesses. The miller grunts. The woman pleads. But none of it seems to matter. Because justice, in your world, isn't blind. It's deeply nearsighted and mostly uninterested in hearing from women. Later you hear the verdict. A fine she cannot pay, 3 days in the stocks, and her herbal supplies seized. You hear a child whisper, "Mama said she made someone's husband leave." You close your eyes. You know how fast that kind of story spreads. Historians still argue whether medieval women had legal agency. Some had property rights. Others could testify in court. But the truth is, the law bent around power, and women rarely had enough of it. You think back to your own moments in front of authority. A stolen chicken you didn't steal. A cart accident that you somehow caused just by being nearby. A raised voice once that got you called mouthy. You speak less now. Quirky fact. In some places, women's testimony was only worth half a man's. Unless you were accusing someone of witchcraft, then suddenly everyone listened, especially if you had a scar, a mole, or a knack for growing mint. The woman is released days later, face bruised, hands trembling. You pass her some bread wrapped in cloth. She doesn't speak. You both know what silence buys. The next time the reeve comes around, you lower your eyes. You smile. You keep your answers short. You hate it, but it keeps you safe. You watch your son run past the well with a stick shaped like a sword. He's loud. He's free. No one will accuse him of theft just because he stood too close to the mill door. You pray silently. that it stays that way. One day a man from the manor accuses your neighbor of watering down her ale. She denies it. She's fined anyway. Her cask is seized. Her pride, too. You see her weeks later, selling rushes instead. Her hands shake when she makes change. You whisper a spell into her palm. 3 words, soft and nonsense. She smiles anyway. That night, you light a candle for all the women who were right, but never believed. For the ones who didn't cry in public because it was too dangerous. For the ones who knew when to bite their tongues and when to bite back. You stare into the flame and murmur, I saw it. I remember. Because sometimes justice never comes, but witnessing still matters. You can feel it in your knees first, not the gentle kind of ache that fades with a warm cloth and a muttered prayer, but the deep, grinding kind, the one that settles into the bones like an old friend who's unpacked a trunk and plans to stay. You're older now. No one says your age out loud, mostly because no one's sure. Maybe 50, maybe more. You stopped counting years after the second stillbirth. Time became something you tracked by seasons, harvests, and the number of times you've patched the same corner of your cloak. Your hair is mostly gray. Your skin is no longer just weathered. It's folded like worn linen. Your hands, once quick and deft with thread and herbs, now tremble just slightly when you sew. And yet, people look at you differently. They call you wise woman. Sometimes with respect, sometimes with a hint of fear, mostly as a polite way to say old, but not useless. The children are grown now, yours and everyone else's. You watch them chase pigs, stir pots, argue with their mothers. You smile and shake your head. You were those mothers once. Now, you supervise. Don't forget the salt, you murmur. That's too much yeast. That's not comfrey. Put that down before your throat closes. Your knees may creak, but your words still hold. Historians still debate how medieval elders, especially women, were treated. Some say revered, others say ignored. The truth is likely somewhere in the middle. Respected when useful, tolerated when quiet, feared when defiant. You've learned when to speak and when to hum softly instead. You're no longer expected to attend Mass every day. Your back is your excuse. So is the cold. And the fact that you've outlived 3 priests and still remember the sins they confessed after too much wine. Quirky fact. Some villages assigned official roles to older women. Herb keepers, death watchers, child namers. You've done all 3. You've named babies, washed the dead, whispered prayers into ears that may not have heard you. You keep your tools near the hearth, scissors, mortar, wool scraps, and an old book of psalms that you never learned to read but still run your fingers across like rosary beads. Your bed is a little higher now, stacked with straw, cloth, and old coats. It creaks when you climb into it, but it's yours. You face the fire when you sleep, so the last thing you see is light. The younger women visit for advice. They bring eggs, bread, scraps of cheese. They sit by your feet and ask about teas, dreams, and men. You give them answers, when you can. Sometimes you lie, just to see if they'll notice. They rarely do. You wrap your shawl tighter and rest your hands in your lap. Your wedding ring no longer fits. It's tied to your belt cord, just in case anyone asks. No one does. You've become part of the village's structure now, like the old tree by the chapel. Everyone assumes you'll be there forever. though no one dares say it aloud. You stare out the window and watch the wind bend the grass in waves. You wonder how many more winters your joints can handle. You wonder if the ache in your chest is something to mention. You wonder if you'll see your granddaughter marry. You decide not to wonder too hard, because right now, you're here, wrapped in wool, surrounded by the smell of rosemary, ash, and old bread, listening to the soft murmur of the village winding down. You are old, you are tired, you are still needed, and for now, that's enough. The world has grown quieter around you, not silent, just softened. Voices are lower, footsteps lighter. People speak to you with that special tone reserved for elders and saints, as if every word must travel farther to reach your ears. You sit on a bench outside your home, cloaked in wool and wrapped in memories. Your hands rest in your lap, curved with time. The sun hits your shoulders gently. You're grateful it still finds you. Your granddaughter skips past with a basket of onions, her braids bouncing, her cheeks ruddy. She pauses, kisses your forehead, and runs on without waiting for a reply. She knows you don't need one. You used to be her. Now you are the person she looks at and quietly vows never to become, until she does. You laugh softly. The sound creaks like your knees. There is less work now, less urgency. No one expects you to carry firewood or chase chickens. You're trusted to sit, to advise, to keep stories and secrets and recipes tucked behind your smile. Historians might say women like you lived modest final years. What they really mean is invisible ones, but you don't mind. You've had enough of being watched, measured, weighed. You've earned your silence. Each morning, someone brings you bread. Each evening, someone asks how you're feeling. The answer is always the same. I'm still here. You wrap yourself tighter, look down at your lap, and see the small tin box where you've stored the things that mattered. A hair ribbon, yellow and frayed. A comb, dulled but sturdy. A bit of blue thread. A tiny St. Margaret charm. And a folded piece of cloth, once white, now the color of smoke. This is your legacy. Not land, not wealth. Just evidence that you lived, that you loved, that you bled, bathed, healed, hoped, survived. Quirky fact, some older women would prepare their own burial cloths, not out of morbidity, just practicality. You've started yours, just a hem and a prayer stitched in at the corners. You haven't told anyone. You like keeping one last secret. At night, the wind tugs at your shutters. The fire pops softly. You lie down on your mat, not straw anymore, but padded with old cloaks and worn comfort. Your bones ache. Your breath is slow. But your heart feels light. You hear your daughter singing to the little ones in the next room, the same song your mother once sang. The notes rise like smoke. You smile. Your life has been hard. No one could say otherwise. But it was yours, and you lived it fully. You close your eyes, whisper a blessing to the roof beams, and drift into sleep. Because tomorrow, someone will ask how to soothe a cough. Someone will want your pie crust secrets. Someone will need a story. And you'll be here. Just a little softer, just a little slower. Still you. And now, as the fire dims and the final threads of your long, long day begin to unravel, you feel the weight of it all. Centuries of footsteps on muddy paths, of babies rocked and dough kneaded, of herbs gathered and secrets whispered. You've walked through a life carved from hardship, shaped by duty, and softened, ever so gently, by quiet joys. The bathwater cooled, the bread rose, the ribbons faded, and still, you were there. Let the sounds of the medieval village fade now. Let the clatter of pots, the creak of the spinning wheel, and the mutter of the priest melt into the hush. Feel the blanket around your shoulders. Smell the trace of rosemary in the air. Let your hands rest. Let your thoughts settle like dust in a sunbeam. There is no more linen to wash, no more fire to tend, no more reasons to bite your tongue or count the eggs or hush the baby. Only breath, only peace. Only the slow quiet of knowing you've done enough. Let your heart soften like worn cloth. Let your worries slip off, like a cloak laid by the fire. And as the last candle flickers and the long night stretches out before you, know this: you were here, you mattered, and now it's time to rest.